Padres fans, we got good news to talk about on a day of big headlines. We get fantastic news that one of our superstar players is coming back. Let's talk about it all in this episode of Padres Digest. What's happening, everybody? Christian Pedersen back with another episode that is now a Craig Salmon show. We have other videos on all the other headlines today, but on this one, actually, I want to talk about Ramon Laureano, and I want to hear from you guys about it because I think there are layers to which to be excited, but of all of those, I am up in the stratosphere, and I am thinking that this could be actually the bigger news of the day. As always, if you want to drop a comment on that, I would love to hear from you guys. You see baseball, as I always say, in this crazy, diverse way, and so maybe I'm seeing this entirely wrong, and that's where I want to hear from you guys as well. Also, if you want to join that community, hit the subscribe button. I ain't going to hate you for it. Let's talk about this. Ramon Laureano has been officially picked up, his option for $6.5 million for 2026 from the San Diego Padres. So the fact is now that we have our everyday left fielder, and I think that, like I said, there's levels to this excitement. So let me gear up to it and let's climb up the mountain here. At the very base level, the Padres have now answered their left field question in a way that I would say we spent a lot of last year, like last offseason, we waited kind of until the very end of the offseason for it to just be like, okay, Jason Hayward and Yuli Gurriel and Connor Joe and this whole mishmash of people, and like we're gonna throw this all against the wall. So at the very base level, we know who our left fielder is, and we can say quantifiably that our left fielder going into this season has better numbers than our left fielder last season did. And I think that that's by a pretty large margin. I get that you can't always say guys will, he's Mr. Reliable. Of course he's going to hit 280. Or, he's going to fall off and never hit a home run again because he switched to Peck. If you just ballpark it, and you say he's going to hit somewhere between 260 and 300 with something between 15 and 30 home runs, then the Padres have a gigantically better left fielder than they did in aggregate across 110 games worth of last season. I mentioned Yuli Gurriel, Jason Hayward, Connor Joe. We saw Turso out there for a couple of games. Johnson, Sheets had a stint where it was like, oh, okay. But then he regressed on the left-handed hit, the hitting versus lefty pitching, and we could have run it back with Sheets at a much cheaper price and been like, well, okay. But putting a 280 hitter, or like I said, somewhere between 260 and 300 is like a 35 to 40 point batting average jump in that spot. So let's talk about the trickle-down economics that come with that. And that's where I get to like the next level of excitement. And part of my next level of excitement is, like I said, the trickling down of, I get that last season you can't quite, you can't, hindsight being 2020, you can't always play the what if games. But I do feel like if we did the what if we had played all of last season with Ramon Laureano at left and still had Xander have his slump and Manny and Nando have their down years and all the other injuries and stuff, in aggregate, the Padres probably would have been like 6 to 10 wins better. That's maybe we don't play that game, but I just, in aggregate, how many of those games where X, Y, and Z was also happening would we have been better if instead of having a 165 hitter and a 0 hitter at catcher, we had Fermin and Laureano? Not news about Fermin being back, like he's extended for a minute, but Laureano now being one of the two pieces, just that the news is talking about, of this transformational, like, we took our two worst spots in the offense and we have now filled them. I can't see how you can't get yourself to then all of a sudden see it as this. And shout out to Divine Sports Gospel. He's had a good run on Twitter the last couple of days. Nailed it with this one. Look at the vibes out there. So he's a guy who is a better hitter in aggregate. He is a everyday player that we can not stress about. Do we have to platoon him or something like that? And instead, it's a guy who seems to fit in as the third amigo in our outfield in a way that is, you like that. You see, or I guess RIP to the City Connect jerseys, but you see that grouping right there. And for me, that's exciting. And then taking it one further, it's exciting that we're getting it at a relatively affordable price. We talked about this a lot, the undercurrent of all the Padres moves this offseason is that they have limited spending room necessarily to make big, splashy picks. But for $6.5 million to pick up this option, he's 31. So he's in the prime of it. Like he's not in last year he was 36. Is he going to fall off this year? Laureano's right in a spot where I think for a couple of years, if the Padres can re-sign it, but let's not talk about that. But for at least this year, they're going to get this is a very good choice. A very everyday Eddie, reliable guy who's got passes the vibe check, is a dude. It fits in with the culture at an affordable price that then maybe also lets us sign back O'Hearn or Arraez or something like that. And then you start talking about okay, you got Fermin behind the dish, Arraez or O'Hearn at first, Cronenworth at second, Xander at short, Manny at third, Laureano in left, Merrill in center, Tatis at right. Then you can sheets, but maybe audition some other guys or have some other, we're back to talking about depth. We spent all of last offseason talking about the lack of depth the Padres had. And then I think it ultimately came back to bite us, not in the sense of necessarily the pitching thing, that was a bad year and we can only hope to bounce back. But in the sense of we had some lulls in the season where we just couldn't keep our foot on the gas pedal because we just didn't have the dudes to sustain the bumps and bruises and ins and outs and ebbs and flows of a baseball season. And now I think we are looking at a season where we do have those dudes. And so that's where I'm everything about Laureano coming back to me is as good as the Craig Stammen news is, because it's we got a manager and I like him. It's a good thing. To me, this is one where it's if we're actually talking about a team with, maybe it's not we went out and added Schwarber and now there's going to be 40 home runs, but we are starting the season with no quantifiably noticeable we've got a gap there. That could be huge. And that could be huge in terms of we don't even realize it now, but in terms of they didn't have to go spend big this offseason. So at the trade deadline, we can actually import some pitch. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself some there, but I feel that there is a lot of good vibes from this Laureano trade, a lot of good baseball to be played, and a lot of it kind of moments. So let me know what you think. Maybe I'm completely misreading this, but I think this is very, very good news that the Padres have decided to pick up this option and have him be our everyday left fielder for the next season. Drop a comment. Like I said, let me know. And if you want to hit the subscribe button, I ain't going to be mad at you. Talk to you next time.